Yeah. Right, good evening, parents of Year 11 students. It's really good to welcome you tonight to something a bit unusual for us, really, a parents' information evening where Luke Thomas and I are sitting talking to a TV screen. Very strange. But thank you for joining us, and thank you as well for sending your wonderful children into school today. It was just brilliant to see them all, and to feel like this is a school again. To really get that feeling that we can remember why we come to work. To actually see the children, to have chats with them in the playground, and to just hear little stories about some of the things they've been up to since we last saw them. So thank you for sending them in. We had today basically just an induction day, not something we would normally do on this scale, but something we felt was really important. We've obviously been doing everything we can over the past few weeks and months to prepare the school for this moment, and to get everything ready in line with all the guidance that we're now having to follow. And it felt to us very important that we spent some time with every single year group, helping them to see what it is that we now need them to do that will help to make us all safe. So we spent a lot of time today talking to them about new routines, new routes to follow around the school, and new timings to their day. And I think it is really important for them to understand also that we as adults are finding it quite difficult to adapt to new routines, new routes, and new timings. And so we're all learning together and going slowly this week to get that done has felt to us as the staff of the school very important. But as well as introducing all those things that are new, we've tried very hard to try and keep things as familiar as we can. So we're running a timetable as close to normal as possible, and we're definitely doing everything we can to try and keep lesson times the same length as they would have been were we to be opening in the usual way. So we've been navigating the guidance to try and make sure that we are totally compliant and making sure that the school is as safe as we can possibly make it for all the children and for all the adults, but also making sure that we are able to deliver the best possible form of the curriculum that we can. And bear with us a bit, because I've got a feeling that over the next couple of weeks, we might need to make some changes to our plans in order to make them work once we have got everyone back. But the bottom line is we desperately want to keep this school open. And to keep the school open, we're all going to have to work really carefully together to make sure that we are doing everything we can to keep each other safe. Because we know, and I think we know more than ever after the last 6 months, that face-to-face teaching is unbeatable. There's plenty you can get from online working, but actually nothing beats that interaction, that live interaction, that face-to-face interaction between the children in the class as they respond to something they're learning, and with the teacher actually being able to read their body language as they're delivering the new concepts and adapt their teaching to meet the needs of the children. So we've got a double priority here. Safety is paramount, but also high quality, really important teaching is also very critical, and that's what we're trying to balance at the moment. So that's what the children have been introduced to today, and it's something that I know Luke Thomas is really keen to go through with you in a minute. Just before he does that, one of the things I wanted to share with you was, I think the growing realization today that none of us are used to wearing face masks to the extent that we had to today. And it was really noticeable with the children, of course, because I would imagine that very few of them have been in many situations where they've had to wear a face mask as much as they had to today. And certainly I would say I've rarely been in that position. I'm sure it's the same for you, Luke. So we're all learning together. But one of the things we do need to do is not just have a face mask with us or even put it on, but to know how to do it in a way that keeps us and those around us safe. So there's plenty of guidance out there, and some of it quite entertainingly done, where we're being asked to consider the habits around our masks similar to the cleanliness habits around our underwear, which I think probably is the one that struck the biggest chord with me. But just generally to make sure that we're not touching the mask too much, generally to make sure that when we do take it off, we've got a little bag to put it in so that it is being kept clean, to think about the fact that actually if you've got a mask on and you haven't got it on properly, you may as well not be wearing it, and so on. So we're going to be doing a fair bit of work with the children over the next few days around that. And we urge you to do the same, please, and to really help your child to understand that it isn't just a fashion accessory, that actually wearing a mask can make a huge difference. And especially on Thursday, when we've got all the children back, and we will have in this building in Westcombe Park 650 children plus about 100 adults. That will make the wearing of face masks and the wearing of face masks properly so very important. But anyway, I'm not here to lecture you. I'm sure as adults you all know the rules around that. I've got two more things to say. One is that we had hoped to do a question and answer session at the end of this. And the way we were going to do that was with you tapping in questions. But what it would seem is that even if you do tap in questions, we at the moment can't read them. So what I'm going to do while Luke is talking is put myself into the feat of being a parent of a year 11 child and think of some questions I can challenge you with at the end, as if I am a year 11 parent, Luke. But finally, what I want to do is introduce you to Luke. Now, Luke Thomas is someone that I know that you will all undoubtedly know, and many of you will have met. But he sits here today in his new role, which is a really critical one for us. It's as the Director of Raising Standards for years 9, 10 and 11. And in that role, what Luke is going to be doing is absolutely scrutinising all the information we've got about the progress that your children are making. And we're going to be looking very carefully to use that information to make the right targeted interventions and to make sure that your children have the best possible opportunities to succeed next summer, whenever those exams are. And clearly, although years 9 and 10 are important, year 11 we know are in a very, very important year. And Luke is going to be the person overseeing their work throughout this year. So Luke, I'm going to pass over to you to talk to the parents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. I'm not sure I will be as eloquent as you just were, and I hope I live up to the billion you've just given me. I'd like to start off, please. Sorry, also good evening, parents. I'd like to start off with this diagram, what I'd like to call the iceberg illusion. We very clearly see with an iceberg the tip, the small bit that protrudes out of the ice. What we don't see is that large body of the iceberg that's below the water. And it's just the same way, you know, the analogy for success. We see the end product, the success and the achievement that's occurred. And what we don't see is all the hard work, the dedication, sacrifices, the failures that have gone into that success. And this is why I started off talking to year 11 students this morning. We know where we want to be, but how much work are we prepared to put into getting there? And I reminded them that obviously the only place you will find success before work is a dictionary. You know, you have to put the work in if you want to get that success out of it. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the journey the school has been on over the last few years before I start talking about the health and safety aspects. If we look at the last 3 years, so it's the top row, the class of 2018, in terms of their attainment, we as a school attained 36 as a score for the year group. We upped that in 2019 to just above 40, and in 2020, this year, we increased that again to just under 47. So over those last 3 years, what you can see is not only an upward trend, but a significant upward trend taking place within the school. So we are clearly moving in the right direction. Linked to that attainment, if you then cast your eyes on the bottom row for me, you will see in 2018, the attendance of year 11 students was only 89%. In 2019, that increased to 93%. And in 2020, this year, we further increased that to 94%. There is a very clear link there between students attending school regularly and students getting very high attainment. The current year 11s last year, when we went into lockdown, they had the highest attendance in the whole school of 94.7%. So they're getting here, and we're providing them with that really good, great first time learning. So this is a case of us continuing to build on that and maintaining that this year, which is really important. There were so many students who came back in July for their extra geography classes, science, maths. It was really great to see that dedication from those students. So it clearly shows that they care and they want to end up leaving school with some really good GCSEs. And in my opinion, I do believe that the current year group will be the highest attaining year group to have left the school. The diagram you're looking at now is pride versus progress, and I'm going to try and break this down for you somewhat. Within the school, at the end of each term, students are given a pride score. I know you didn't get an end of year report last year for your children, but hopefully you'll get one and in the end of this term, you should be familiar with the pride score. The pride score is made up of a number of metrics such as attendance to school, punctuality to school, your child's attitude to learning. As such, the highest pride score is a 9 and the lowest pride score is a 1. What you can see very clearly is the higher your pride score, the more progress that students make, and the lower your pride score, the lower the progress that students make. So students with an attendance figure, with a pride score figure of 7 and above make positive progress, whereas, as you can see, when we start getting below those numbers, obviously the progress is more negative. The higher your pride score, the better it is, or the more likely it is that you're going to make positive progress. There is a very clear link also between attainment and your pride score. I'd like to add that although it says class of 2020, we actually took this data back to 2018, and we can see in 2018 and 2019 the same picture emerging, whereas where the pride score is higher, the attainment and progress is higher, and where the pride score is lower, the attainment and progress is obviously lower. And those three things I mentioned earlier, attendance, punctuality, and your child's attitude to learning, they're quite basic as far as I'm concerned. We're simply asking them to get to school every day where possible, to arrive to school and their lessons on time, all the time, and to have that right frame of mind in that classroom. And by that, it's a case of getting the classroom, sitting down, getting their equipment out and having that right frame of mind to go. Where they come up against any barriers or obstacles, the default setting isn't, okay, I quit, I give up, I'm not going to try. Because we don't expect every single student to get things right first time. We know that they're going to get things wrong. We know that there are going to be failings, along the way. But the message that I try to get across to them today in assembly, and I want to obviously get across to you as well, is when they fall down, they've got to get back up and start again. Fall down again, get back up and go again, because we are on that journey together. And as long as they persevere and have that drive, there's no reason why they can't be a success, and why we as a school cannot continue that upward trend that we've been on. These are some of my students from my last year group. What you may not be aware of is that there's a very diverse mix of students on that list. A number of them, females, males, people premium, non-people premium, higher attaining pupils, non-higher attaining. But they've all got a very good progress score, not it as value added. Someone like Maliki, for instance, at the top, he achieved nearly 3 grades higher across his subjects than his target grades. And if we look, you know, my pupil of the year is Kelly, who, you know, having been with her on the journey she's been on over 5 years, for the progress that she has made from where she came and where she has ended up, it's been absolutely fantastic. Her mom, as we are, I know I am, you know, as a school, are immensely proud of her achievement. And it's because she put so much hard work and dedication towards her studies. You know, she didn't find it easy all the time. It was definitely hard, and there were some tears at times in the years, but she didn't give up. She kept on going, and it obviously paid dividend for her, as it did for a number of students across the year group. And though the students didn't have any exams at the end of the year 11, I actually believe that they would have had even higher progress. I do. Me and Miss Rose had this discussion. They'd have had even more progress and even more attainment, because they were really, really screwed on, and they had the right attitude. They were really, really ready for those exams. You're just looking at a few students with their selected results. You can see a number of students walked out with some very, very high grades. Some have gone off to grammar schools to do the International Baccalaureate. Paradise Far on that list has stayed with us. He's doing 4 A-levels at present. I've got no doubt he will be a success at them. We've also had a number of students who are also high attaining, who have remained in our 6th form, some of which I'm looking forward to teaching A-level biology to. Now, the reason why those students, as I mentioned earlier, were so successful, in my opinion, is because they had the right attitude whenever they were in the classroom. Their behavior for learning was spot on. They completed their homework on a regular basis. They never settled for the bare minimum when they were in the classroom. It was very often, okay, what's the extension work? I want to get on with the extension. Okay, miss, I didn't quite understand this. You know, rather than them not doing it or giving up on themselves, they asked for that help and that support. And though teachers can't necessarily walk around the room as we would have done in previous years, we are still there to support all learning within our classroom, and all it takes is for that child to ask for that support, and it will be given. Those students, they were dedicated towards their studies. They made sure that they had all necessary equipment and resources. I cannot count the number of times at break time and lunchtime we were doing revision. They were in the breakout area doing bits and pieces in preparation for their subject. They were very reflective. Where they knew they had weaknesses, it wasn't a case of, okay, I'm just going to leave that to one side. They worked on those weaknesses. They sought out the guidance and support of their teachers outside of lesson time. So the after school sessions that we had were great, but away from those sessions, those students went and spent time with their teachers to get help in those particular areas that they had weaknesses on. And, you know, like I said, it's a shame they didn't have the exams, but it is what it is. I know for a fact it would have been even higher. And they made sacrifices. You know, as I said to your young children this morning, you know, this year, it's a really, really important year, and sacrifices are going to have to be made. You know, if you've got to put Netflix away for a bit, then you do so. You know, if it means your mobile phone isn't in the room while you're doing your studies or your homework because it's a distraction, then so be it. These are little things, if you ask me, but they can have a massive impact. Now, the students that we had obviously went off and have gone off to several sixth form. Our sixth form last year have again continued that very, very positive trend. In terms of the A star and B grades that we've got, we've seen a doubling of those grades. The vast majority, as you can see, 85% of students were able to go off to the university of their choice and do the course of their choice. And the reason why they were able to do that is because they got the grades, much like the year 11 students. As I said this morning, you want to keep the option within your hands, rather than being told, okay, you can't go to this school or you can't do this course. It's okay, I can go this, or I can go and do that, because that choice is in your hands because you have attained the grades that are required. They went off to do, those students in year 13, many different courses, again, that they wanted to do, and several went off into top Russell Group universities. Russell Group universities are the top 20 universities in England. And one of the great things about this sixth form, particularly for those students who have attended the school, is we're not a massive sixth form. We are growing, and I hope we continue to grow. But we know those students, we know what their needs are, and we're able to put that personalized support mechanism in place for them, so that, you know, when they make the transition from Key Stage 4 to Key Stage 5, which is a lot more independent learning, they're able to do so successfully. Right, so moving on now to the safety aspect, and as Miss Smith mentioned to you earlier, the safety of your children, as well as all the adults in this school, is one of our, if not the main priorities, definitely up there amongst our priority. And we want to make sure that what I saw today in terms of the positivity of all the year 11 students that came back into school today is maintained throughout the year, because it was an absolute pleasure to see the whole year group back, you know, and going around at break time and lunchtime and having a little conversation with students. It was very clear that a number of them, okay, yes, they had to wake up early in the morning, you know, but they were very happy to be here and meeting with their friends again, and, you know, putting things in place to move themselves forward. So within the safety aspects that we've done, so all year groups are going to be in their own year group bubble. And to further facilitate that, what we've done is we have a staggered start and a staggered end to each day, and we have staggered break and lunchtimes each day. So no year group, once the school day has started, will be mixing. Prior to school starting, obviously, we have in the canteen area year group tables as well. So if students want to come in early, when I say early, school obviously continues to open from 8 AM. So although your child might not start until 8:40, they're able to come in from 8 AM if they wish, and have their own designated canteen space, or they can spend the time in the playground, or we're going to have the library available for year 11 students to use as well. Upon entering or exiting the building, they have their own exits. Year 11 are just down by the emergency exits. They have their own stairwell. They have their own toilet. No other year groups are able to use those entry and exit points, as well as the stairwell. The map isn't the greatest, but literally year 11s are all based on the second floor, that we're able to provide them with some specialist science, for instance, and everything that they need is up there, along with the 2 computer suites, which are obviously required for them to continue their lessons. You will see a more up-to-date version of that map on the website, I believe. And again, you know, to control and monitor their entrances, they've lined up in the mornings in their designated area. They're escorted into the building by their tutor or subject teacher after break, after lunch, and at the start of each day, just again to ensure that we have that controlled entry and we're maintaining safety, where we're checking. Everyone is sanitizing as they're entering the classroom, sanitizing their hands. Everyone's wearing their mask when they enter those communal areas in the school. I just wanted to highlight the need. I know that this document was sent on about this a few weeks ago. because of the current situation that we're in, one of the protocols that we have in school is students cannot, and I repeat, they cannot share any equipment at all. So the equipment on the list you're on the screen you're looking at present, they need to have their own equipment to use throughout the school day. Now, if they've obviously forgotten a pen, they can ask their tutor, and where possible, the tutor will provide them with a pen that they will then take away for the run. But they must not share equipment with other students in the school. New on that list are the glue sticks, whereas teachers would usually distribute glue sticks for students to use in the class. Your child will need to bring their own glue stick. And I'd also like to bring your attention to the PE kit. It needs to be the John Roan PE kit. It needs to not have a hoodie. Your students should not wear a hoodie to school at all when they have PE. There will be an opportunity sometimes in emergencies and extenuating circumstances for them to change should the need arise. But the decision that we've taken is the PE kit will be worn throughout the day when they're in school. Please, I really do want to emphasize the need for your child to have their own equipment. You know, even if we put COVID aside for 1 minute, it means that they are ready to learn as they enter the classroom, and there's no, I haven't got this or I haven't got that, which obviously can have an impact on their learning. So the attendance at school, as I mentioned earlier, is a massive importance because there is data that continues to show a very clear correlation between attendance at school and attainment. And you know, I could show you some DFE stuff, but I'm sure you can find out for yourself online. There are, however, going to be occasions where your child is unable to come to school. So I just want to spend go over the next few slides with you, going through the national guidelines. And I want to emphasize again, these are not the John Roan rules. These are national guidelines as produced by the Department for Education and what used to be called something Health England. I've forgotten.
Public Health
England. So if your child has any coronavirus symptoms, please do not send him or her to school. They should be self-isolated. You should contact the school attendance officer as you would normally do, and you should arrange for a test to be carried out. If the test is negative, your child can come straight back to school. If it's positive, then obviously they will need to continue their self-isolation for 10 days. If someone in their home has coronavirus symptoms, it's the same thing. Please do not send that child to school. They must self-isolate. Again, you need to contact the school attendance officer, given as much detail as you possibly can. And that member of the household should again be tested. If the member of the household comes back negative, then the child can come back to school. If they come back positive after the test, then the child has to stay at home and self-isolate for 14 days. If the NHS test and trace have identified your child or someone within the household who may have had symptoms or a confirmed coronavirus case, who they would have been in close contact with, again, please do not send your child to school. Please contact the school attendance officer to give as much information as you can, and they need to self-isolate for 14 days. After those 14 days, the child can come back to school. If your child is required to self-isolate for a period of quarantine from traveling overseas, and this is one that I'm hoping does not apply or will not apply to any of you, the attendance today was absolutely fantastic. Obviously, don't take any holidays in any countries that are on the Foreign and Commonwealth Office website that you will need to self-isolate when you come back. Please speak to the school prior to any holidays being booked. If your child has come back from a quarantine country, they obviously need to undergo quarantine for 14 days. You will have to inform the school, and they can only come back to school after those 14 days. If your child is clinically vulnerable, this is in a future local lockdown scenario only. The government will have sent you a letter because that child would have been identified as being vulnerable centrally. Your child should not come back to school. You should contact the school and then share the government letter that shows your child has been identified as being vulnerable, and your child should undergo shielding. Work will be provided for your child either online via Teams or other online mechanism, and your child can only come back to school once the restrictions and shielding have been removed. Now, these are very, very, very important guidelines and protocols for us to follow, because the last thing that Ms. Smith or any of us want to happen is for the school to then close down again because there may have been an outbreak, or a particular year group to have to stay at home because there has been an outbreak. If we follow these guidelines and protocols, what we are doing is massively minimizing the risk of any infection occurring in school, of any year group having to be sent home, or for the school to have to potentially close down. In terms of marking work, you will see a big difference this year. The amount of red pen in your child's book will be vastly reduced. Your child will need to bring in and take home their subject exercise book every day, which is why it is so important that they have the correct bag being brought to school to be able to do so. They can't leave their exercise books in school this year, so it's really important they have that at home, and it's good practice anyway to be reviewing the work you've done at home in case you were unsure of anything. What you will see is a lot more self and peer marking, which means you're going to see a lot more red, and beg your pardon, green and purple pen work in your child's book. We have invested in quite a few more online assessments across several subjects, as well as, you know, keeping those really effective ones like Hegarty as well that the maths department use. So you are going to see a lot more homework, which is online based, a lot more assessments, which is online based, rather than your child having to complete work in their books. And we've also made a decision, or Ms. Smith has made a decision, to ensure that every child has a mini whiteboard, pen, and an eraser. They're very quick ways for teachers to assess, because obviously we can't walk around, and I know I'm going to miss it, but I love walking around and looking over a child's shoulder and then having a little discussion if they weren't quite understanding, or writing down something that showed that they understood what they were doing. The mini whiteboards are a very, very quick way for us to assess understanding in class, you know, just a quick little 5-minute assessment, or through questioning quite easily. So your child will have one of those for them to take from one lesson to the next, which I'll advise them to look after and not waste the pen ink, for instance. And finally, from me, I just want to talk about uniform. I've mentioned this specifically after seeing the year group today. The vast majority, and I do mean the absolute vast majority, who were perfectly turned out in their uniform. One thing I want to try and get away from are black trainers. It needs to be school shoes. Too many female students wearing tight, skinny trousers. Now, I know some department stores sell that in their uniform section. Buying it from the uniform section does not mean it's uniform, because it's not part of the general uniform, which quite clearly says that the trousers need to be tailored, and that means that they need to be roomy, shall we say, on the leg, and not skin tight. And obviously students need to wear a blazer to school as well. We are aware that there are some issues with the suppliers of blazers. So while for this week we're going to be somewhat understanding, by next Monday we expect all students to be fully turned out in their uniform, unless there are, again, some very, very, very extenuating circumstances. And just to finish up, hooded tops under no circumstances should be anywhere in the school. The misconception is, oh, I can wear it in the school but not in the building. That's a no-no. It's nowhere in the school whatsoever, whether that be in the playground or building. Hooded tops are not supposed to be at school at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And as far as I'm concerned, you've done quite a good job of answering some of the questions I thought I might have wanted to ask, but I found a few.
Okay.
So my child in year 11 has actually been out of school since March, and certainly in March and April and quite a lot of May and probably into June, I found it very difficult at home to get them to get down to their work. So I'm really afraid that they've missed quite a lot of work. What's the school going to be doing to make sure that that gap in learning doesn't impact too badly at the end of the year when they take their exams?
Okay, we've got quite a while before the exams are here. We're actually going to have a bit longer than we usually have, potentially, with them delaying the exam. So it's not a time to panic. We will cover anything that we need to cover that your child may not have done. Teachers are already aware in regards to which student primarily completed the work and which may not have done so, although in some instances it was the case that the work may not have been sent in. We're going to continue with the My Tutor sessions that we have been running for the last few weeks. I'm hoping to also introduce some new students to that each Wednesday. I know I've got a bit of a budget to spend on getting some money to further support students, so we will do that, but primarily it's going to be what takes place in the classroom with that first time learning. Teachers are absolutely ecstatic, the vast majority of us, to be back in school, because, you know, as a parent myself, I know that I want the best for my children, so I'm going to obviously try and give the best for other people's children, because I wouldn't expect anything less for my children. So don't panic is the key message. Any gaps that have been identified will be addressed, and I can already tell you there are several mechanisms that are in place. I was speaking to Miss Kaiser, who's the academic mentor for year 11, and we've already divvied out 30 students between herself, Miss Sumner, and me for year 11 in regards to who we're going to provide some extra support to over the next couple of weeks, just to get them back on track, because we know who they are already.
So I'm a bit worried, because normally if my child was unwell, I would say, oh, pull yourself together, get into school. It's just a runny nose. What's your problem? But I'm afraid that actually this term, the school's going to turn my child around at the door and say, actually, you need to stay at home. So I understand that completely, but I am really worried about them then getting behind in their work again, and just want to know how the school's going to be setting work for children who are perhaps off. I looked at your chart and I can see that there's a chance that quite well children might have to stay at home for periods of time. What's the school going to put in place to help them to learn at home?
Right, so I mentioned earlier we've got a lot of online resources. So we brought into Seneca, which is an enhanced version which has several subjects. Microsoft Teams, which is what we're using now. Teachers are going to be recording their lessons live as the lessons occur. So if that child missed that lesson, then that lesson will be posted. Work will again be posted for your child if they were not able to be in school, either in bulk or on a lesson by lesson basis. We're going to endeavour to ensure that no child is left behind in terms of if they have to self-isolate. The work that they would have missed that day or that week would have been provided to them either in advance or on a day-by-day basis for them. You just need to make sure you let the attendance officer know, and the head of EM, Miss Sumner, if your child will not be in, so that work can be gathered and provided.
And so coming out of parent mode and into head teacher mode, we've also got access to the Oak National Academy, which are setting lessons that children can access. And I suppose what I would want to say is that, you know, thanks to the huge amount of work that staff and parents did and students to raise money last term, we were able to give out a number of Chromebooks. Yeah. So what would I do if actually, I think now it might actually be quite useful for my child to have a Chromebook. How do I apply for a Chromebook? Have you got any left?
Yes, we do, and it's not an application as such, because we're not going to judge you or anything like that. It's a case of, if you think your child needs one because they haven't got online access, or the only online access they have is via their phone, which, you know, the screen isn't big enough, just let us know. Let the head of EMS Sumner know. That information will then be passed on to the IT department. The Chromebook will be put together for your child, personalized, I should say, with a password and everything else, and then we'll send you an email or call you to say Chromebook is ready for you to collect. At the most 2 weeks between you contacting us and picking it up, but usually within a week.
And I think that will make a really big difference. Yeah. I've got loads and loads of questions, but I know that Year 11 parent evenings are always incredibly well attended, and I feel very anxious for all the parents out there who are probably thinking, we're not going to have that opportunity. What are we going to be able to do for our parents, or is that one that we can't quite answer yet?
I don't think we can answer that yet, because the parents' evening is not until January, if I'm not mistaken. We obviously, Miss Smith is going to send out a weekly newsletter. Miss Sumner will be in contact on a regular basis as well. If we believe any information is relevant, it will go via parent pay as well as go on the school website. So I would advise you to obviously make sure that we have an up-to-date email address for you, and what's on parent pay is correct, and check in regularly on the school website. You should already have access to all the curriculum that we're going to cover over the year, all the necessary revision books that your child may need to get. Some really good revision websites are all on there already for you to access. So it's a case of being proactive. Okay, so I think other than that, you covered most of the questions I thought of. What I will apologise is to any parents who've got questions that I haven't thought of. So I think the route through is we're all going to have loads of questions. If parents continue to ask us questions that will help us to think about the logistics of how we're running the school, how children are getting the best out of things, any kind of questions, I suppose I have to say no question is a stupid question and no question is too small. Some questions might take us longer to answer. But what we've been doing is, as questions have come in, we've been trying to keep the website up to date with frequently asked questions that are in the parents section, and we will continue to do that, because it is likely that your question is also the same as maybe 20 other parents are asking. So please keep an eye on that. I'll do my best on Fridays in my letter home to cover off some of the main things that are causing people concern. But I think the bottom line is we're really excited to have the school open again, and we want to keep it open. And so the work that we are doing is to try and minimise any risk of transmission, so that we can be as certain as we can that we are reducing the possibility of having an outbreak at school. We ask you to do the same at home, because of course things can happen outside of school and be brought in. But I'm fairly certain that I'm talking to a group of Year 11 parents that will share my desire to give these children the best possible chance in their exams by keeping the school open, making sure our teachers are safe and well all the time so that they can continue to teach. And I'm sure we're going to have a brilliant year. It's going to be hugely successful. Yeah. And the way they started today was fantastic. And if that sets us up for the year, then I'm very excited. Yeah. So, Mr. Thomas, thank you for your time tonight. Thank you, parents, for listening in. We're going to record this, so any of your friends who weren't online today can watch it at their leisure later on, and you can watch this as many times as you like. And this is possibly the first of a number of ways in which we're going to talk to you like this. So thank you all very much, and good night. Good night.
I have to click it up.